Good morning. Welcome to the porch. Well, we thought we'd get down here and do a video this morning. The weather is really, really good down here this morning. Now, we're still trying to figure out how we're going to get our lighting right in here on the porch. I've put a cover over the front porch here just a few minutes ago, and I may have gotten it a little too dark. We're going to make this video and just see what it turns out like. But bear with us, we're trying to control natural sunlight, and sometimes that's not too easy to do. But anyway, the subject that we want to talk about this morning is being a doer. And in this day and time, there's lots of education out there. You can learn a lot of things, and it's probably the best time in the world to be alive, to me, because the knowledge that you're able to get a hold of is better than it's ever been. When I was raised up, a high school education doesn't compare to much of anything to what we can get today. We have social media, we have all types of documentaries, all types of professional people coming on TV and teaching people. And some of these people are very credible, and some of them not so much. You kind of have to discern what you need to listen to and what you don't need to listen to. But that's just kind of an opening statement to try to get us to understand what this subject is really about. And it's about applying what you learn. With all the education that people have today, I think an amazing thing that I see, to me, is that people are highly educated but not very smart. Now, let me explain what I'm saying there. It's not in criticism, it's just an observation, okay? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and one of the things that she said, I don't have a whole lot of education, but I do know some things. Well, here's what I said to her, just what I just said to you guys. I said, education doesn't mean you're smart, that just means you're educated. And I said, the smart people are the ones that know how to use education. So let that lead us into the subject matter in a little more depth, okay? So you see people that spend all this money and time going to college and learning things. And I want to say this quickly, I'm not against that. I'm for education. Matter of fact, I'm for education about as much as anybody could be. I think it's necessary. I think it's a wonderful thing. But they learn this stuff and then they get out of college and they may not even put this to use in the real world. They may go do something else. Well, what happens to people is they learn all this stuff. Within 2 or 3 years, they forget most of it. And where I first really picked up on this, I was out on the West Coast working. The company I worked for decided that they would pay for computer classes for anybody in the company that wanted to go to a computer class. And these things lasted a pretty good while, local college, but they lasted a pretty good while. And I think they were like 2 nights a week. Anyway, my wife and I took those computer classes. Now, my wife knew a little about computers, but I didn't know anything about them at all. I just didn't mess with computers. One of the things that Mr. Coffee, the professor there, said that stuck with me and still sticks with me to this day. He said, now I'm going to tell you, if you don't have a computer at home and you don't use one at work and you're coming in here to learn how to use a computer, he said, you're wasting your time. He said, because the way this works, he said, you either use it or you lose it. In other words, you can go through all of these classes, learn how to use a computer. And he said, if you don't go to using that thing and working with one of them right away, within a few months, you won't remember anything you've learned or not enough to do you any good. So I remembered that. So whenever I got into class, I made up my mind I was going to do this right. I always wanted to learn how to use a computer, and I just didn't know how. Didn't have that education available to me until now. So we went to learning how to use a computer. And I want to say this really quick because it's kind of humorous. Mr. Coffee, he was straightforward, blunt, kind of almost a crotchety old fella. And not too many people liked learning under him, but I did because I knew where he was coming from. But we became good friends before that thing was over with. But I started learning the computer, and I reflected back on what he'd said that I needed to get a computer. So I went to the computer guru there in our company, and I asked them if they had an old computer that I could use, put back there in my work area. I didn't even have an office. I just had a work area. So anyway, they said, yeah, but said, it's going to get full of dust and it won't be any good. So I took some plastic and made me a makeshift little office there to put my computer in just to protect it. And long and short of it is, we got the computer in there. It's no obsolete computer, but it still had enough stuff to do what I wanted to do, primarily work in Excel. But I learned how and I started using it, and I started realizing that I could use that computer to track our product and what stage it was in. Now, we had lots and lots of product. The human mind just wasn't capable of doing tracking it. And a lot of what happened to us is we would do a process sometimes over because those processes looked so much the same you couldn't just look at them and tell them apart because we had no way of tracking them. Or we'd skip a process, and then when you would, your product would fail. So there was a high dollar cost to not knowing how to track this stuff. Anyway, I learned how to track it on Excel. I made spreadsheets to track it, and we updated those every afternoon. And we always knew where we were at. Changed our abilities tremendously. I wished I had time to go into that, but I don't. It was amazing what it done. One night I was there at the college working, and Mr. Coffee come up there and was standing behind me watching me work on the computer. And I had created an Excel sheet there and using it and training on it like I was doing at work. Well, I was using it so that I wouldn't lose it. And as he stood behind me, he said, I want you to show me what you're doing. I said, okay. So I showed him. He watched intently. I walked through the whole spreadsheet scenario and how I used it to track our product. And he said, okay. He said, tomorrow night, he said, I want you to teach the class. And I said, man, Mr. Coffee, I don't know if that's a good idea or not. He said, yeah. He said, what you don't realize, a lot of young people come in here and they overcomplicate these computers and these spreadsheets and things. And he said it gets to the point they're so big and massive they don't do any good. It takes everything you've got just to maintain them. He said, you're one of the few people that I've ever had come through this class that actually knew how to make a computer work for you instead of you working for it. So he said, I want you to teach the class tomorrow night. Well, I ended up teaching that class, I guess, 2 or 3 times, and gave people, some information that would help them. But the whole thing was just to say I was using a computer so I wasn't losing it. Now, as we bumped along, I want to talk to you about how this helped everybody and helped our company tremendously. Was I ended up managing a good part of that company, and I had 8 supervisors working under my management. And my boss told me at one point, he said, I want you to train your supervisors on how to use computers. So I did the same thing for them. I got them a little office set up. And by this time, my office advanced actually had wooden walls and everything. So we were moving forward. But anyway, we set them up little offices in various places, put some of the older computers in there. I went in, set the computers up, got their Excel sheets set up, and then took them in a conference room and over a period of time trained them all. And it really helped us. But now I want to move along a little bit different now, take a little bit different turn here. If you're going to learn something in life, let me say this. You only have so much mental capacity. I wish we had more sometimes, but we have what we have. You only have so many hours in the day. That's just life. That's just the way it is. And the thing that you need to understand is there's sometimes you don't need to be learning some things because you'll never use it in life. It's just a waste of time. Doesn't do anybody any good, doesn't do people around you any good, doesn't do you any good. So think about this. If you're going to learn something, ask yourself how that's going to benefit your life. Don't be like the college student that went and took some ridiculous course on why frogs jump or something like that. I know that's an exaggeration, but you know what I'm talking about. Don't do that. Don't waste your time. You don't have but so much time in your life. You don't have but so much brain capacity. Think about what will help you and the people around you. Get yourself educated in that. Put it to work. Here's the thing about education. You can know a lot of things, but anybody that's been around the world a little bit will tell you this. Book smarts are just a beginning. They're an open door to a better world. When you start applying that to life, what you learn in the book, you will find out really, really fast does not encompass everything there is to learn about that. Hands on is the way you learn. I can tell you, I hired a lot of people over the years. I've been managing companies for a long time. And the one thing I've learned is I'm not interested in what college you went to so much. I am some, but not so much. What I'm interested in, how many years out there in the trenches have you had? How many encounters to solving problems have you had? Because if you hadn't had them, you're not very smart. Sorry, guys, that's just the way it is. So if you want to be smart, you got to get experiences in life. So there's no scripture in the Bible said, be ye a doer of the word and not a hearer only. And it goes on to talk about how you forget what you've learned if you don't apply it to your life. And it has no value to it unless you do apply it to your life. So understand this. If you're going to learn how to build a house, get a hammer and get some nails and go to work, build a house. You're going to be surprised at how much more you're going to learn when you start building that house, or whether it's digging ditches or driving tractors or whatever it may be. You're going to learn a whole lot more. And here's the thing is that it'll stay with you for the rest of your life if you will put your hands on it and go to work and learn it that way. All right, guys, as always, we here at the Porch love you. We want the best for you. May God bless and have a good day.